Good morning and welcome to Boardroom Forum Live. My name is Kandi Bai from PwC Strategy, and I'm here today with my colleague Andres Rousseau and Martin Solomon. It's interesting to mention that the integrated energy system sits right at the nexus of energy, water, and food security. And nobody knows that better than us in South Africa because of the impacts of load shedding because of the shortage in energy. We've seen that disrupt our water system, including agricultural production, which has also had issues in terms of prices. That is something that we are going to be talking about today, particularly about how government and the private sector can work together, including communities, to address this problem. I wanted to start with you, Andres, and ask you, why is PwC involved in energy in this way?
Thanks. The reality is that energy is such a big crisis in our country at the moment. It's at the bottom of what we have in terms of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. And think about it. The job creation or lack of job creation because of lack of energy is really creating lots of unemployment. You mentioned food security, water, all of those things impact on poverty. And inequality, at the moment, it's the haves that can put solar panels on their roofs and the others have to suffer when we've got load shedding. PwC's purpose is to create trust and solve important problems. We believe this is a crucial, important problem that needs to be solved. And unfortunately, it's a problem with a lot of emotional debate around it. It's important that we get the facts on the table, create science-based solutions for it. When we know the facts, we can come up with proper solutions. And I think PwC has got a great role to play in order to steer the dialogue in the right direction.
Martin, talking about the dialogue, we've heard a lot about energy and especially energy sustainability and decarbonization. And everybody keeps talking about solar and solar and solar or renewables. Is it smart, or is it even possible that we could actually focus just on one?
I think renewables will make a material contribution to addressing the current crisis, but also the long-term sustainability and security of our energy supply. However, the scale of our challenge is significant. And the other challenge that renewables has is that it's erratic and intermittent. And for a system as large as South Africa to move purely on the basis of renewables is simply not going to work. So we will end up having to develop even an aggressive renewables program supported by other technologies, such as gas. And we, of course, hope that breakthroughs in technologies like batteries and, in our instance in South Africa, fuel cells, because of the PGM linkage, happens. But it cannot be just renewables.
If I speak to Andres, of course, we have to have some kind of mix of these technologies. Yeah. What does it mean for the path that South Africa is trying to take?
Yeah, so we all want to end up in that fantastic green future where there's no carbon emissions. The reality for us is that we will still be burning coal for generation in our country for some time. If you look at the coal power fleet that we have at the moment, the new ones, Medupi and Kusile, they should still be there in 2050, if that's the sort of window that we're looking at. Unfortunately, the rest of the coal fleet already aged well above 50 years on average, and it will reduce our carbon emissions because those plants will fall over, as we are seeing at the moment in terms of it. So the new build will happen. What's going to be in that new build? Absolutely a big portion of renewables, and both solar and wind. And wind will play a massive role in the future in terms of what that energy mix would be. It's interesting that during day hours, we've got nice sun in this country. It works. Actually, the peak hour time, so early mornings, late afternoons, early evenings, that's when the wind blows. So it works like clockwork. So throughout the season, it works well. Not so great in winter, though. Then winter is driven by cold fronts coming through. And when the cold front is passed, wind drops off. And that's when the cold hits Joburg. And that's when we really need energy. So the problem with renewables is the intermittency that we have. And therefore, you need baseload. Now, we've said coal will be there, but it won't be enough. We need a lot of gas. And gas that we need will come in the form of both open cycle and closed circuit. And the key there is that we'll be in a position where gas sorts out baseload for us, but also take care of the intermittency. So manage the system that we need in a renewable environment.
Martin Andrews talks about all of these technologies, and this seems like a huge problem. And I think when we were starting this discussion at the beginning, it was about actually how do we get everybody working together. But South Africans are very nervous about privatization because it seems that we have to bring in all these private partners. What is the PW thinking around these issues?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to recognize is that the scale of the challenge that we face in the short term and in the long term is such that no individual institution can address it on their own or its own. So we have to work collectively, jointly between government and business in unison. And we need to pool our resources to get the best effective outcomes. And that means that we need to set up appropriate institutional structures, agree the guiding principles under which we will operate. And insofar as privatization goes, we are effectively not arguing for privatization, but for significant participation of the private sector. The objective effectively with government is to drive risk when we work in collaboration out of the process, which means we can aim for lower profitability, which ideally means we deliver lowest cost of energy. And that should put us in a position where the economy can function better. So profit is not the motive, but of course, participation by anybody warrants some profit taking. We're trying to minimize that. And insofar as ownership of any of the power stations might go, that ownership could sit partly with government, partly with private players, partly with social structures in communities. Unions could participate. So this is not privatization in pursuit of profit. It's privatization under collaboration to really deliver an effective outcome.
Have we got any examples, gentlemen, that we can think about, especially when we think about collaboration?
In our instance, the confidence we have in the approach is that we have a proof of concept that has been achieved within water, where after a good many years, government and the private sector came together to solve a common problem of national interest, in effect, around water. There were hard learnings, and we have now established, through collaboration, a true model that we think we can scale up because the power or energy crisis is significantly greater. So we have confidence because of the successes in water.
That we've actually seen in water. And then I think you could maybe tell us a little bit about what would be expected, first of all, from government.
Look, government has its own unique role, and we will always respect the sovereign role of government. But the reality is that, firstly, government needs to support the initiative, effectively the replication of the collaboration model that we achieved underwater. So government subscribing to that approach is critically important. But equally, if not more important, is that government will always be responsible for policy setting and regulation. And to the extent that we need to revisit policy and regulation, that is government's role. Besides that, because it is a collaboration model, we expect that government will bring to the table such resources in terms of human capacity and capital to the extent necessary to help us drive and deliver. And beyond that, of course, it's really to work with us as one under rules that we will have commonly agreed.
Okay. I mean, I'm looking at you, Andrews, nodding and nodding and nodding. What part particularly for you sort of makes a lot of sense that you feel like, we need to re-emphasize?
Yeah, the size of the problem needs sizable answer, and that's why you have to do it together. So Martin spoke about government's part of the role. Clearly, business needs to play a role in that as well. Funding, if we talk about what's required up to 2050, probably need about 6 trillion rand in terms of delivering on what's required. Generation, probably 4 trillion. And then, but the other infrastructure, associated infrastructure, transmission and the like, makes up the balance. So massive. How can we achieve that? Well, only when you've got a collaborative model where you aggregate demand, aggregate supply, and it allows the big funders who can actually foot the bill for this, which isn't any individual company or any individual government institution, to aggregate supply and demand, and therefore get best, lowest credit risk type funding into the process. It means the skills that Martin spoke about that government can put in, private sector can put in as well to complement and support that. And in the end, it's a collaborative effort in order to address the problem.
Yeah, I think we keep going on about collaboration rather than private public partnerships, which I think a lot of people also have been very nervous about, especially the way they turn out. Gentlemen, I think we're running out of time. So what I want is to start with you, Martin, to just say one or two things that we think are important for emphasis, what everybody should be taking away from this conversation and what they should continue to think about. I'll ask you the same.
I think critical to collaboration is that we truly need to operate as one voice around this subject. It has national importance, and an us and them approach will simply not get us there.
Andis?
Yeah, absolutely. So us and them, and that us and them goes to the different technologies. You cannot pick one technology and place your hat on it. We need all levers to be pulled. All of it needs to deliver into addressing it. The second thing that I believe is really crucial and important is we're talking about a long-term solution, but we need to take steps now in order to get along the journey, in order to deliver into the long-term solution. We cannot wait for 2050 to be there. We need to take steps now in order to deliver and solve the current energy crisis as well, with a long-term systematic outlook.
Thank you very much for that. I think actually the most important thing is to recognize that all the problems are here. We keep talking about decarbonization, climate change, all of those things are here, and therefore they require solutions for today and looking towards the future. It has been really good to be able to interact with everybody. My name is Kandibai. Thank you for having spent this time with us, and we look forward for you to listen to the next episode.